Cool. All right. So welcome, everyone. My name is Jervis, or Jay. Jay is my nickname, Johnson. And we've been running this meetup for a few years now, and we've been having some interesting characters and people and leaders in the Agile way. We decided, to focus on what we call enterprise Agile, which is basically transformation or changes for large companies, because anytime you go to scale and you try to make Agile adoption and transformation, you have unique challenges because of the size and corporate structure and politics and so forth. So that's been our focus for the last few years, and we discuss those kind of challenges we have, bring people in to talk about specific innovations they've done or created, specific ways of handling or unique. We try to find unique solutions that are coming across in the Agile community and corporations today. Tonight is no different. However, tonight we want to take a stab at having all of us kind of discuss the typical nature of what I see at most companies and corporations is taking the frameworks that are out there and the ways of doing things and tailoring and customizing it for the particular culture or needs of that company. Again, I've grown and we've gotten larger over the last few year or two, and now we're more global. So I used to live in San Francisco with some of the other people here, but now I moved to Carmel, Indiana. So I'm here where it gets cold, colder than the Bay Area, and I work for a company called CNO Financial and do some other work here in the Agile space. We also have a lot of cool stuff coming up this year and then next year. So I'm going to turn it over to Gopal so he can maybe tell us what's coming up.
We just want to do a shameless plug in terms of the great lineup that we have. So the next 3 months, we have awesome speakers and topics that are really, really exciting for everyone, especially me. So in November, our own leader here, Jay and Joseph, are going to talk about chaos engineering. And this is one of the hot topics if you have read anything from Google and the things that they're trying to do with respect to chaos engineering, complexity, all those things. They're trying to bring it together in terms of how it impacts the organizational ecosystem. So Jay is going to do a presentation as well as have a conversation around it. That's for November. December is about change. So change management, lean change management. We're going to have Jason Little. He has written a couple of big books, small books with big price, but they are pretty popular. And we are trying to get him to give away a few of his books as well in raffle. Let's see how far we can get there. So he's going to talk about lean change management in December. And in January, we are going to have a speaker from Europe, Thierry, who is going to talk about continuous delivery. He has implemented continuous delivery in big organization, and he's going to talk about the best practices, lessons learned. So this is not a theoretical conversation. This is about his lessons learned from continuous delivery implementation. So that's what is lined up for the next 3 months. Back to you, Jay.
Great, thank you, Gopal. So now I'm going to turn it over to Piyush, and he's going to lead us in collaborating and working together and breaking out and having some conversations and coming back and discussing this whole notion of frameworks, tailoring it, customizing, making it work for our unique situations. Piyush?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So before I get started, I think, Jay, you gave your introduction. So I think, Gopal, do you want to give a quick introduction about yourself as well?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Go ahead, Piyush.
awesome. All right. So thank you everyone for joining this session of World Cafe format that we are doing today. It's a very interesting way of harvesting thoughts and ideas around topics. And today, what we have here as our topic of conversation is we have seen so many frameworks that are being embraced in the journey of business agility transformation by different enterprises, and you have been part of many of them. What we want to gather today is around three areas, specifically, that is portfolio and business agility, technical agility, and innovation. So these are the three areas, and what we are looking to have conversations and brainstorm is what are those different frameworks that your enterprise or where you joined were used to customize. Did you use multiple frameworks that work in the context of the enterprise in these three areas? So that is specifically and typically what we would like to have the conversation today. And I will walk us through how we are going to go about it. And before we go to that, let us, we are a small group today, so we can do a quick introductions about ourselves, so that will help each one of us to have an engaging conversation as we get into our breakouts. So I'll give a brief introduction about myself. I am Piyush. I've been in the IT industry since 30 plus years. Started as a software engineer. I've had multiple businesses before I started getting interested in servant leadership. And last 14 plus years, I've been an agile, lean agile DevOps practitioner, supporting product agile and modern engineering transformation. I've worked in the banking, finance, insurance, media related domains, and it's been fun. I've also done some work with government agencies, and I have worked with different frameworks, different areas. So it's been a very enriching journey for me so far. And I would like to call out Jay would be the panelist for the innovation ideas around the frameworks that we have used, and Gopal would be the panelist for portfolio and business agility. And I will pass on to Ron to introduce himself. He's the other co-host and the panelist.
Okay, I'm taking on technical agility and looking forward to having conversations with you about what you found that works and what you found challenging in technical agility. I started like Pi did as a programmer. I spent 7 years as a programmer, transitioned into product management, actually got recruited into Apple to do product management for the development tools I've been using as a programmer. Transitioned back out of product management, back into engineering, and then into management as a manager at Apple, director of engineering when I left Apple, VP of engineering at Charles Schwab, and have been consulting for the last 9 years as an interim VP of engineering, parachuting in, and helping to make software development hum, actually, and also as a servant leader, which I think is with Piyush, I'm quite fond of as a concept for those of us who are in traditional leadership roles. And I nope, that way. wrote one of the very few books on managing software people and teams called Managing the Unmanageable. And so I'll pass it to Gopal.
Yeah, Gopal already introduced himself. So I think what we can do is, as our next round is that we'll do a chat burst of getting to know each one of us, and there is a reason why I'm doing this chat bus, because we're going to use that in our activity, right? So the chat burst I'm just going to share here. So these are the responses that we will want to do as a part of chat burst. So just a little bit about chat burst is that we'll give 30 seconds to everyone to gather this information in your chat, but you will not press the enter till I make a count of 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so on the count of 3, everyone will enter and we'll get to know each one of us at the same time. So this is one of the ideas from the liberating structures, if you have been delving in that space. So giving opportunity, equal opportunity to everyone to introduce themselves. So I'll give 30 seconds from now, and let's fill up the responses on our chat and be ready. So, and then I'll count on 3, and then we can press the enter button at that time. So 30 seconds.
I should issue a warning that while those 4 things are have a return or enter in between them, if you press return or shift return or anything else return, it's going to give what you've already done. So maybe put a slash in between the answers to the 4 questions.
Yes, thanks, Ron. So I'm also going to keep my ready. Okay, so I'm going to count 3, and on the count of 3, we'll all press enter button. 1, 2, 3. Wonderful. Yay. So I think Jay was the fastest finger first, then Gopal, then Andre, then Krishna, then Ron, Bobby, Ipo. Very cool. Nice. Awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share our activity board. We are going to use Mural. Let me get the pulse of the room. Just do a thumbs up either physically or through the emoji reactions on the Zoom page if you have already used Mural before. Okay, so it seems almost half of us have, more than half have used Mural. So that's very good. Okay, so
those of us who have used it can help the rest.
So we will I think we'll be able to go much smoother in this activity, since we have already been using Mural before, most of us, but doesn't matter if you have not. We'll make sure that you get practice enough so that you are able to be as effective as anybody else. Okay, so I just posted the link to the Mural board that I want all of you to join, and I will see as you join up. I'm seeing people are getting in. I'm seeing Squid, I'm seeing Hippo.
I'm a cat.
Okay, very cool. Nice. Rabbit. Yep, I'll wait. So okay, so now that we are on the screen here, are you seeing the outline on the mural on the right side? If anyone is not seeing the outline on the right, tell me or shout shout out. Okay, everyone is seeing it. Okay, so now you remember you did the chat bus. So we are going to use that chat bus and get little familiarized with our using of the Mural board. So what I want you to do is I'm just going to summon everyone to follow my cursor. So just a more. So you'll see what I'm doing here, right? So I'm going to click one of the. So what we are here is in the auditorium right now, okay? And I'm clicking on one of the box here, and if you see here on the top, you will see the icon. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So I'm going to click on the border icon so that I can actually make a border on the square. So you have to occupy one of the squares like how I'm occupying right now. So I'm clicking on one of the boxes just like that. Each one of you should take a box which is basically a seat in the auditorium. So you're just taking a seat in the auditorium. Pick any box. That's your seat today in the auditorium. Okay, so choose click on that square. You will see icons. Take the 6th icon and you should be able to color the border. So the moment you color the border, it means you have taken seat. Okay, and then very cool. Awesome. All right, so very good. So now what the next step is, let's go back to our Zoom chat and copy paste what you had pasted from the chat burst that you did, and we want to paste it in that box that you have selected. Just paste it straight away. Just copy it from the chat and paste it.
There is a sticky in my box. How do I remove that sticky?
So select it and press delete.
It doesn't go away.
No, mine doesn't either.
It should.
Yeah, it's already pasted in there for some
Okay,
reason.
doesn't matter. You just copy paste your text on it, text on the box where you are seated. You select your and paste your box, and then you know here. So right now none of you are following me, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen on the Zoom so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so here we are now, and this is how you can zoom and see what is happening. So if you are not able to control your box or anything, you basically what you want to do is make it little large, and then you can see what you can do with what you are trying to achieve, right? And there is this zoom as well, so you can zoom like this. So the moment you click on the box, you will see the stop bar. Using that bar you can do a lot of stuff, right? So
How do I get out of move mode? I'm somehow in move mode.
you are in the move mode. So you click on the box where you are. Are you able to click on the box where you are?
No, I'm in move mode. Oh, wait, that's that hand down there in the lower right.
Yeah.
But I'm still in move, but it still just moves the canvas around.
Okay. So
Okay.
let's see. I think I see Jay. I see Krishna. You have pasted. I can see here. Bobby, I can see. Joseph, I can see. Andre. Very good. And I'm seeing here, Ron, you put your name. So have you tried pasting the stuff from Zoom?
Yeah, it's all pasted there. It's all
Okay.
there. It just all goes off to the right. It doesn't wrap.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, now I've got another sticky that I can't get rid of. These things don't delete.
Yeah, I think that's why we wanted to spend some time in familiarizing, but I think we are good. I think when you double click, a sticky comes in, and that's what basically we want to get a hang of how we do things. So I think we are okay for now, to sufficient enough familiarized with Mural. So let's get to our agenda. So this is how we are going to do. As I think Jay and me, we spent earlier some time to set the context of what we are going to do. So what we have here are we have 3 breakout rooms, and for each of the breakout rooms we also have a huddling space. So for example, if you click on the outline, on the 5th outline, you can go to the breakout for portfolio business agility. So this is going to be your workspace for your breakout. If you want to spend time in your first round with technical agility, then this is going to be your workspace. That's the number 6 in the outline. And if you see number 7, that's your workspace for innovation. Okay. Now, how do you get into a breakout and you focus on this is basically, as I said, we have this panelist. So Gopal will be for business agility. Ron will be in technical agility, and Jay will be innovation, and I'll remain in the main room, and I'll be jumping around the different rooms and helping where the help is needed.
So I don't mean to throw this off, Piyush, since it's a very small group. Why don't we just stay in the main room and go from one section to another, and everybody contribute in each section?
Oh, I like that.
So the idea here is that we want to. So are you saying that we not do the breakout room and just without breakout room we do it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
We're small enough, we can do that.
All right. So let's.
And we just time box each discussion. In that way, we just cover all 3.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good way we can do, since we have a group which we can work together. So yeah. So let us start with the portfolio business agility, and I'll put a timer for 15 minutes on that, and we can get started. Okay. So after 15 minutes, we'll jump to the next topic. So let's get going on this one, and you can start putting your ideas in this, and we will have a conversation for the next 15 minutes on it. If you see on the top, you'll see the timer that tells you how much time is left on this.
Piyush, quick question. So what ideas we want to put on this business agility?
Okay. So it's a topic around portfolio management and business agility. So
Yep.
What have you seen on where your experiences have been in this particular space in the enterprises where you have been engaged? And what are your experiences on what frameworks were used and what frameworks were in the context of your enterprise, and what was that worked, what did not work? So I think if you can put some thoughts, and then we can go around for each of the stickies and see what everyone has to share on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I put a couple examples out there, which is in portfolio management is pretty common is, how to manage work intake process and tailoring lean portfolio management. Those are familiar with SAFe. And the other one is issues around prioritization. So how do you prioritize the work and the investments? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Sure. I
Mhm.
mean, I think let's see what others are thinking about this area.
So let's make a quick check. Does anybody need any help with Mural? Everybody okay? All right, silence means everybody's okay.
Yeah, I see a lot of ideas already being put up here. So we'll give another. So we'll give another a minute and a half to have everyone throw the ideas, and then for the next 10 minutes we can have the conversation. Okay, last 30 seconds. All right, so I think we have a good number of thoughts. So who would like to go ahead and talk to their sticky first?
I can start.
Sure. Which one are you talking to?
Before we go there, how are we taking notes, or are we doing in some way describing outcomes?
So what we will do is as we have the conversation, we will identify what is the pattern emerging from this conversation, and then the final session when we meet, we will harvest all those ideas, Ron.
I'm skeptical we're going to remember them all unless we scribe them somehow.
Agreed.
Okay.
And Piyush, if you want to put some stickies in terms of best practices coming out of it, that would be awesome.
I will. Yeah, I have your sticky on the side. I can note down. Sure.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Piyush. All right, I'll start first. Mine is the sticky that is the fourth from in the first row, which is customize SAFe with traditional budgeting. So what I am going through right now is basically the budgeting process is the traditional budgeting process of a big enterprise, which includes the whole, how much money we have from last year, how much is it this year, things like that. There is also a list of initiatives that are being drawn up with a certain set of priorities or drivers associated with it, with some high-level costing associated with it. And then there are conversations going on in terms of how to stack rank them with a certain group of people. So that's what I'm calling it a traditional budgeting. Once we have that, the initial set of priorities or initiatives defined, then we will go through the OKR, the backlog, going into different product streams, value streams, and things like that, and going through the PI for execution. So for the most part, it's a traditional budgeting exercise at the top level that flows into the a customized safe word process.
So you started with traditional budgeting, and did you get an opportunity to convert that into participatory budgeting, or is there?
No, unfortunately, change doesn't come easily.
I agree. I'm with you.
So Gopal, are you saying that's working or that's not working?
So I don't think we are being agile fully. That's the issue. So you have this, discrete way of making decisions, and then you want the outcomes to be agile. I think there is a disconnect. That's still an issue.
So I think that's a good question. Is it working or not? Well, of course it's working. They're getting stuff done and getting stuff delivered, right, Gopal? But could it be working better? Could it be leaning towards more business agility? I think the secret sauce in there, and what I think a lot of people are skeptical about this, is that where's the proof? Where's the data, the empirical evidence? If we change this and do it, which is a big change for most companies and very difficult, are we going to realize the benefits that significantly indicate that we should have spent time and calories doing this? And is that a fair thing, Gopal, to say?
Yes, and
Yep.
there is also, you need to keep in mind the ecosystem, which is you got fiefdoms, you got
Yeah.
all those aspects of it, people aspects of it, culture
So
aspects of it.
also the power struggle, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant by the culture and fiefdoms. Yeah.
But if I may add this, on the similar line, the commercial organization, many times they just look at it as, let's say, key financial metrics, for example. And if they don't see the needle moving on some of these financial metrics, no matter what you do, that's where the disconnect many times come, because the leaders believe that, like if we can't move some of those, let's say, financial performance or at a business level, many times I have seen my own executives telling, I don't care how you do it, but move the needle on that, right? So it goes back again to that same overall business budgeting typically works on an annual basis, but how do you kind of adapt it to your specific business unit or product line? We are kind of stuck with transformation on a single product line, and all other product lines are still in a traditional way. And they picked our product line as a pilot, so-called pilot for the transformation. But we need to live in both worlds.
Right. So my experience is don't ever try to tell a CFO how to do financials and how to do budgeting, because that is a non-win scenario. I can tell you that right now.
Exactly.
So Krishna, I would definitely like to know a little bit more about one product line being different. So what are you doing differently in that one product line?
No, you know, like this is adapted safe. So we took some of the ideas, we got inspired by safe, so we try to adapt it into our context and so on. So we don't call it safe, but you know, we have got a lot of ideas from safe on the one hand, and on the other hand, we got inspired by Spotify. Okay. So there are several product lines, you know, in the company, and we picked one product line and said we will go through like we equated product line to a value stream, if you can, you know, kind of relate to that, and said, okay, we will take this product line and run through an agile transformation. Okay, so that's how we
So you
started.
have a fixed budget for that product line, or do you have a
Yes.
variable budget?
It is variable because many of this, I mean, within this product line, it's also driven by how many customers we are going behind, right? So it is not like a fixed. It is still variable. There is certain element which is fixed, obviously, and there is definitely a lot which is variable depending upon you know, though we call it a product line, a lot of it is customized to a specific, you know, customer. It's not like just out of the box you just keep shipping, right? There is a lot of customization which we need to do for a you know, specific customer, right? So there will be a lot of variability which is, you know, kind of associated with that.
So within the product line, one product line, you will have different development streams or value
Yes.
streams, and you're
Yes.
doing
Yes.
participatory budgeting. What kind of budgeting are you using for that?
Yeah, so I must admit that when it comes to budgeting and so on, we, I think, are still stuck in a really, you know, the traditional way, right? So you start with the annual budget, you try to give some kind of relation to, you know, the capacity, the infrastructure, the, you know, all that development, etc. Then internally we're trying to map it to the agile teams, right? So if I think, as Jay mentioned, if I go to our CFO and our divisional finance guys, we don't talk any of this, you know, in terms of agile language. We still try to speak their language, the way they understand, the way they drive the whole thing. So internally, we keep on mapping, you know, oh, okay, you know, when we come to our world, you know, we use our, you know, agile budget and assign to these teams, etc. But when we go to the so-called headquarters, it all becomes their language, you know.
Awesome.
So I
Awesome.
mean, that is the kind of challenge which we are anyway going through.
So last 45 seconds, and I think this is a great conversation. I think what emerged from that is that most of us have experienced that we are still having to work with the traditional mindset in this space of portfolio management, and that's where the challenges are. And I think I saw three folks from this group who spoke, but I think collectively it is emerging on that line. So is that a fair understanding?
Yeah. So Piyush, I just want to ask you this. We only have 3 areas, right? Is 15 minutes enough time, or can we allocate a few more minutes for each?
Yeah,
area?
we can give 5 more minutes for this topic.
Because it looks
we
like
didn't
there is
we
a-
didn't speak on the business agility part, so probably we should spend the next 5 minutes on that for this one.
Yeah, I don't want to be the, you know, only 2 or 3 people speaking. I would
Yep.
like everybody to
Yep.
participate.
Yeah, I think we can give 5 more minutes to each of the topics. So anybody has thoughts around the business agility piece? I'm seeing a lot of great ideas around that. So who would like to talk about the business agility part?
I mean, if I can just steal a few more, you know, a couple of more minutes. The one thing which, again, I realized is there is a business commercial organization, for example, the sales and the customer interface organization. You know, somehow, if we want to change the whole universe, I think it will take a long time, you know, within our company, and then how we interact with our customers and so on. So it's always good to say, how do we deal deal at the interfaces. Like, I mean, I come from an engineering background, so we define some interfaces and make sure there is frictionless interface to the extent possible. But I don't think we can remove frictions at interfaces, right? So we can only reduce friction. So how we can make it as frictionless as possible at interfaces? Suppose I'm dealing with a commercial organization within my own company, how can I reduce the friction? And my commercial organization dealing with the customer, how I can reduce friction, you know, because I think the customer will have its own view. In fact, we are struggling with this. Customer is using an adapted Spotify model, and we are using an adapted SAFe model, but we want to make it work. And we are talking about co-creation, collaboration, etc. And I don't think we will change their let's say adapted Spotify, nor they will change our adapted SAFe, but we have to make it work. So how do we make it at the end?
Yes, that's a good point, Prasad. In my opinion, it's going to change over time anyway, because we're always changing, right? Some new shiny object's going to come up, right? I think from business agility, I think we have to define what that means in the organization. So I don't know if any of you follow or be part of Business Agility Institute. So they try to define this, and there's some others that have tried to define, you know, how businesses become agile. I think one of the big things I want to suggest to people is that to do business agility, we have to go in there with a humble mind and spirit. We don't know the business. If I go into banking executives or insurance executives or anyone and start telling them how they got to run their business with my background, they're going to kick me out. Okay. They're not, I have no credibility in doing that. So I think it's more of a collaboration and facilitation of how we can take our agile values and principles and mindset and some of our practices and techniques and work with them to adapt it so that they become more nimble and adaptive. And the big thing right now is what we call ambidextrous organizations, where the funding model, which we just talked about, and the mindset and the decisions we make have to go through basically two tracks. One is innovation or change the company. The other is to run the company, keep the company running, right? And there's different skill sets, capabilities, and focus areas that you do for each one of those. If we'll talk about innovation in a minute, but that's what I'm seeing most companies do. They're kind of bifurcating not only the funding, but the organizational structure, the way of thinking for them to be agile. So so a lot of surveys and research gone out now from MIT and Harvard and everyone else. And the number one thing for most companies in the world right now is innovation. Change the organization. Be nimble. Change the culture. I mean, diversity and inclusion all of a sudden is the most popular thing. I don't know where the heck that was 40 years ago when we needed it. But right now it's very popular, and doing something for society is very important now, especially for millennials and the next generations coming up to work for a company. So that's what I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, everyone. I don't know if we all agree on what business agility means. So that's my question.
Well, I want to throw in my question, which is, so I've got two different clients that the enterprise limits the amount of time, the enterprise, the business. So Jay, I can't, my technologist can't walk into there and any more than you can to say, here's what the business, but they go to the business to find out what the business wants. And the business says, well, either we already defined that for you. We don't have time to give you more information. We have time to tell you how bad it is, but we don't have time, once you give it to us, but we don't have time to give you more information. Or we're not going to give it to you until we've defined every single thing for the next 6 months worth of work. And neither one of those is agile.
I will absolutely. I think that's what and in this particular space, I think there is more of the CXOs and high level leadership, which are still in the traditional mindset, and it's basically everyone is facing a situation of how to help them to move in the direction where that would be more nimbleness, and how we can help in the whole organization through that. So I think you're absolutely spot on.
So Gopal did throw out the question of how do we bring them in? How do we convince them that, or maybe it was Jay, how do we convince them that it's worth doing in some way that they haven't done before? And I wonder if someone who hasn't spoken would have
So Ron, I think
some input on that.
we can come back. Is it okay if we can come back to this when we harvest, and we can jump to the next one? Is that okay with everyone? We want more time on this topic?
Piyush, I must say that each of these topics that you listed, frankly, each of them, they merit much more time than this. But because we know that, well, we probably give it some maybe discussion, and maybe we will come back to these topics sometime in the future when the whole session is dedicated to just one of them. But I understand that this time is kind of an introductory type of maybe discussion. But frankly, Piyush, the true benefit would be if we spend more time on each of them. And having said that, if I may propose, if you want to discuss the next topic, as G also mentions, hey, all of a sudden innovation is number one. Can we go to innovation instead of technical agility?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that's a good segue. Let's do that. Good idea.
Thank you.
All right, cool. So let's jump to the innovation area and continue our conversation. 15 minutes, or I'll give 20 minutes. Okay, so we can have enough time to complete the conversation. All right. Feel free to share your thoughts on stickies. Let's see what's coming up, emerging. This time we'll have someone who has not spoken give an opportunity to speak. So this topic is around innovation. So we are basically talking around innovation topics. So if you are doing and related to technical agility, you can hold those thoughts for the next one we do.
I definitely want to hear the Hackathon.
Okay, another a minute and we can get started. Looks like the cursors have settled down. So, okay. So who wants to go? I think hackathon is a demand on whoever
I'll
puts-
I'll speak very briefly to Hackathon. I've got a client that just did a Hackathon, and it is and it's innovation from the standpoint of let's figure out how to eliminate the impediments and spend that week of creativity in the removing impediments, or and oftentimes in the technical debt area rather than in the business innovation. It's often technical innovation.
Okay.
And it really innovated their teams, as hackathons do.
Mhm. That's a good idea.
Awesome. Who wants to speak who has not spoken yet? Let's see who else is here. So I saw Jay, Burgess, Krishna, Jill, Bobby, Sue,
Yes,
Raj.
I want to speak a bit about a hackathon. I think it's probably similar to hackathon. It's actually a period of time where we gather a group of people to focus on certain challenge, and we hire external consultant and the designer to come in to help us. And overall, the kind of like the feedback is good. The challenge I see is like it's a one-off event. It's more like if somebody take a checkbox. Okay, we have done this innovation-related activity, and then that's it. I wonder, do you have some suggestion? I don't mean to solve the problem. I'm at least to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, so that's a good point. It's I think it's funny and hilarious. And look, I know Dean nothing well and safe very, very well, but the fact that we can have an IP and say in 2 weeks we're going to innovate, start thinking and innovating is the same kind of thinking, right? Creativity and innovation should happen all the time, right? And you've got to allow time for it. So that's a good point. I'm curious to see, you know, everyone's experiences on that. Hackathons and hackathons, you know, what and innovation days. I mean, have people seen good results of that?
Well, definitely seen the client who brought up Hackathons definitely saw a tremendous reduction in the friction that the development teams were experiencing over the course of that week. Hackathons are notorious, are famous for generating amazing results in short periods of time of things that people are passionate about. I think this use so one of the things I heard from your questions, Hugh, was the question of how do we engage, how do we get our developers to be innovative all the time? One of the thing that prevents them from being innovative all the time is when product management comes in and says, here's how you're going to do this. And if product management really focuses on here's the outcome we want for our customers, then we engage developers in figuring out, oh, well, we could do it this way. We could do it this way that's really cheap. We could do it this way that's more expensive. We could do it this way that's probably the Mercedes of solutions here, and we can really get some options out there for how to do things that creativity and innovation on the technical side.
So there's an idea that I pick up from Ron's sharing. I think what I gather is rather than having some official event or a mandate, by helping people to come together, whether is it regularly or ad hoc, somehow I could keep the fire going. It might not be as strong as I wish, at least keep the fire going, helping people to come together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, story refinement's one of those possibilities. Because
Yeah.
story refinement's where we explore how we could break it down and tackle the story. And oh gee, we could tackle it this other way.
Yeah, yes. That's a good point. Thank you, Ron.
I'm very curious to learn about opportunity to experiment. If whoever has put up that, whenever you're ready to speak.
This is Jill. That was mine. Just making sure that the teams have that opportunity to experiment. And I added the okay to fail, right? So that they know that they don't always have to succeed. It doesn't always have to be successful. We can learn in the things that we fail.
Mhm.
Do you do anything to enable that or to nurture that, Jill?
No, I am new into Agile. That's just from a meetup just the other day.
Got it.
Yeah. Actually, Ron, if I can add to that point, one of the challenge we are not challenge. One of the ways we are trying to do is earlier the developers would not see some stories as experiments. You know, they would always treat stories as deterministic. Something has to be done and it has to work and things like that. Now we are trying to attach some flags that this is an experimental work, and the objective is to learn and not like a like a deterministic outcome, right? It's not an algorithm where you say 2 + 3 is always giving 5. So that is kind of helping, because once the dev team is knowing that, oh, this is an experiment which the business guys are doing or the product management team is doing, then they also know that, okay, this is an experiment, so we need to learn and we can try this and that, as opposed to a clear story and a clear implementation.
And are you able to make that fly with your business partners?
Of course, we are continuously motivating the product management organization, because many times they have it in their head that it's an experiment they want to learn, but they don't tell it to the dev team. No, so that's when the dev team, if they don't know that it's an experiment, and all at the end of the story, they'll say, hey, you're telling us this, and then we implemented, and now you're changing your mind. Whereas the product management is always thinking, hey, look, it was an experiment which I wanted to run. And but this is really kind of helping, just by flagging that it's a experiment and we still don't know whether we want this outcome or not, right? So it is greatly helping.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because there are certain companies now out there that have metrics on innovation, number of ideas that have been converted to solutions and in the market and produce revenue, and some companies actually have spawned off other companies through the innovation, right? I put Adobe Kickbox out there. I put the link. That's becoming very popular right now, and that's an innovation for the whole company. And you can read about it, but it's basically, you can download it. It has a three-step process. You get like $100 or something like that. And you get 2 or 3 people together, and you create something, and you present it to your manager. And if they like it, you present it to the executives, and if they like it, you get funded, right? You get to create a new product or a service, right? But Adobe Kickbox is for everybody in the company. Anybody can do this, right? And it's not expensive. Some people say, oh God, I got a budget $100 a person in my company. We did studies on that, and only 5% or 8% of the company takes advantage of it. So you don't have to worry about the finances, right? You need to focus on allowing people, giving them time. A lot of people, these people do this on their own time. And they come up with innovation ideas and they bring it to the organization. But you have to change the organization and allow people to bring things to you to evaluate them and determine, you know, if this is worthwhile to innovate. I think experimentation is critical, fail fast and early, and that mindset. Some companies just have not latched on to that. I've seen more and more companies changing and evolving into that. Some companies are still resisting, and I don't think those companies are going to be around much longer. So
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on, Jay. And I think what I'm seeing another idea, which I think will segue to what you are saying, is like crowdsource innovation. So anybody has thoughts around that? One, Jay, do you see that? There is in the middle.
That was me.
Yeah, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, it's similar to what people have mentioned, right? Innovation is not about a small group of people in a dark room or in a smoke-filled room figuring out what the next idea is. It is everybody across the enterprise thinking about what can we do, whether it's incrementally, whether it's disruptively, right? Evolve or revolutionize. So making that happen is basically a behavioral change. If you just measure people in terms of how much they produce, not the outcome, innovation is not going to happen. It's going to die. So you got to focus on outcome. You got to make sure that people are given all the things that we talked about: fail fast, experiment, make sure there is hackathon, there is whackathon. All those things need to be put in place to make sure that there is a cultural change across the enterprise. And that's what I meant by crowdsourcing.
Wonderful. Yep. And then I see this role storming. That's very interesting. Who has that?
Mine again is Jill. A gentleman introduced role storming. So it's,
Are you sure, Jill, you're new to Agile? Because you have quite a bit of ideas.
yeah, I guess I've attended lots of webinars, but this is from a gentleman. I can't remember the organization, but he was on the West Coast. He looks at brainstorming or generating ideas or solving a problem. And, you know, we all have a certain mindset or a certain personality that we bring into when we're presenting ideas. So his method is for us to put on different hats. And so you might put on the personality of, let's say, Mother Teresa, and you generate ideas based on if you were to approach it, if you were Mother Teresa. Or you might go the other extreme and put on the persona of Eddie Van Halen, right? So how would Eddie Van Halen approach solving this problem, or what ideas would they generate? So it's just putting on certain roles so that you let go of, you know, the restrictions, I guess, that your own personality brings.
That's great. And what have you experienced?
I've done it in scenarios, just as a teaching opportunities. I haven't introduced it in the business world.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and find the link to it and put it in the chat.
yeah, that'd be great. Well, I do have a question for everyone. And I think this is still pervasive today, like it was 30 or 40 years ago. And I'll give you the concept and the idea. Some people can create and innovate. Most people can't. Okay. Therefore, we have to set up an organization and culture that really, you know, we're running the organization, everything, and we're not going to worry about the majority of the people in the organization and culture because they're not really able to innovate and create Therefore, we'll create an innovation lab and hire the right people to do that. What do y'all think about that conceptually?
I would say there is a lack of clear definition of what innovation is. What is innovation?
I fully agree. I think the posts that you see, innovation versus research, that's I posted. I fully agree that there should be probably some clarity about innovation. Is it about we are inventing new things, new devices, new products? Are we improving existing? Are we revolutionary modifying something? That's one thing. Another thing is, Jay, you are raising good question. If you look at the history of anything, history of writing, history of philosophy, or history of engineering, not necessarily everybody has equal passion for innovation, or maybe even ability or capability. If you look at any enterprise, let's say with 1,000 people, do not expect that all these 1,000 people, they are innovative minded people, or they have passion for innovation. Maybe vast majority are absolutely happy to do the daily routine as they are working. But you have to identify those people that they are innovative people, and they are passionate, and they dare to experiment, and they are not afraid if they fail, and they will be like identify, hey, Joseph, you failed. Those are different type of people. And the great comments that you did, Sue, I love that comment that you did, that hackathon is great, but usually it happens as part of a process. Look here, week 1 we did this, week 2 we did this, now we are on week 12, let's do 2 days hackathon. It doesn't happen. It's good for checkboxing, like tick the box that yes, we did hackathon. We did hackathon in 2 enterprises, 2 companies, and one of them, they brought even a national celebrity. To my unfortunate, I forgot the name, a female name, a celebrity of facilitation, encouraging, inspiring for 2 days. I did not see much of outcome out of it. Another one was very closely facilitated by myself. We didn't see any substantial outcome because we put people in 2 days and we expect that in 2 days they have to produce something innovative. Innovation should be continuous process. Just wanted to say it should be team, budget, space for it, and continuous process.
I've had the opposite experience. Really amazing outcomes from hackathons.
Ron, I'm not saying that it will not result. I'm just saying that to expect that within 48 hours, some innovation should happen. That's what I'm saying. I fully agree that maybe there are hundreds of or thousands of hackathons that they resulted in brilliant ideas. What I'm trying to say is that innovation should be not restricted to the end of, let's say, per safe. At the very end of the program increment, when everybody is busy about let's get ready for the next PI planning or next. So I will just stop. I see that.
I think this was a great, I think we got a lot of great ideas that we spoke on innovation. And if everyone is comfortable, shall we move to the next topic on technical agility?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Here you go. Last 50 seconds. Okay, so let's see what we have. All right. Dojos and katas. That's interesting. Hmm. Anyone wants to talk about dojos, katas, mob programming? I think that's interesting.
So dojos and katas are a software craft mechanism that recognizes that just coding doesn't make you a better programmer. Practicing programming makes you a better programmer. And so the fast agile folks at Blue Shield were dedicated, I think, every Monday afternoon to dojos and katas to improving their skill at programming.
Wow.
The PSL in Medellin, Colombia, the founder would set up, I think there are 3-hour-long dojos in which basically mob programming, but mob programming on a particular kind of problem that was also practicing craft, improving craft skill.
Interesting.
Okay.
There's a book out there on dojos, by the way.
Yeah, so Ron, I have a question for you. One of the things I see a lot of companies struggle with, and maybe you have or not, is that when we come up with these improvements and capabilities, whether it's TDD, BDD, or new tools or DevOps, tool chain, automated testing, how do we spread the wealth? How do we include that knowledge into the teams without disrupting? Because they got to learn how to do this, right? And how do we do that? How do we get that ingrained into them and they can learn how to do it and apply it and change how they're coding and testing? Have you figured out how to do that?
Yeah, Target in Minneapolis has a dojo-based process. Did we have the Target guy talking to us earlier?
Yeah,
a year ago? I've forgotten his name. He's at Wells Fargo now.
yes.
Interestingly, after a number of years leading the dojo program at Target. And so you'll recall his mechanism. They had a group that paired with the team that they were working with they took the team into their environment, into the dojo environment, but with the team's own challenges, with the team's own coding. So they basically doubled their team for that period of time, which are partly accounted for the loss of productivity while they were learning the new techniques.
Yeah.
So, so Ron, what you're saying is when they're learning, there is loss of productivity initially, but eventually it helps into exponentially grow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think there's also another key element to doing that, which is the teamwork process. fomenting teamwork inside teams makes teams more productive, and software development's a team sport.
And then Ron, I have a question, one more, sorry. One of the struggles I'm seeing right now, a lot of companies, a significant percentage of their software engineers are contractors from consulting firms. And we're always debating, should we invest on training to do that? Should the consulting firm do that? How do we get them upskilled? And once we get them upskilled, they're going to leave anyway, right? So do you have any, ideas on that?
Well, there's that famous quote of, well, what if we train all our people and they leave? What if we don't train them and they don't? So there's that. But I think in terms of consultants and contractors, that as a director of engineering and then a VP of engineering, my approach was always we're hiring hired guns. We're hiring people who have the skills that we need. We bring them in for the length of time that we need those skills, and then we send them home. That's what contractors expect of us to do as well. They are hired guns. Now, to the question of training, I don't want to train them in programming, but I do want, if I'm going to do agile training, team training, I absolutely want to include them, because they are part of our teams. So that's how I think of the division between those two.
Yeah, that I know when you onboard a contracting firm, you drive down the price so much, and then you kind of set that expectation. But once you onboard them, then you start setting a different expectation that, they need to be the super guns and this and that and so on. So that's always a challenge.
Yeah, that's true.
So when I'm offshoring to a whole team, I'm looking for, I actually look for that as do they do dojos? Do they do something that is upskilling their, like PSL does in Colombia?
Yep.
And there is this sticky I see, DevOps equals technical agility. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a joke. So I'm seeing a lot of that right now. Oh, we're doing DevOps. We have DevOps teams. We have automation and tools, and we have CI/CD, and we can release millions lines of code every day. We have technical agility and mastery. And I'm saying, well, I don't think that's the full equation. I don't know what Ron thinks about that or others, but I don't think just because you're a great DevOps firm that you're, at the peak of your technical agility.
So I'll give you what I think about it, because I did a webinar this morning in which sort of this question came up, and we actually had all of the attendees. We had 60 or 80 attendees, and we had them, are you 100% agile? Are you 0% agile? Are you 20, 40, 60, 80% agile? Characterize your team, your organization, your company. And then there was can you be 100% agile question came up. And agile is a journey. It's not a destination. So I don't think so.
Yeah. Ron, I also have a question for you regarding dojo and katas. And we are an agile transformation team, so we don't do programming. Jay and myself, we are just coach. We are transformation agents. We don't do design. We don't do. How would you suggest that we could exercise dojos for agile coaches, for RTs, for change agents, for transformation leaders? I was wondering if you had some experience with that, how we could exercise implementation of dojos. And
I'll say my own focus as a consultant is on people and process. And agile and management, and it is not on the engineering side. It's just working with engineers and engineering all the time. And to bring in dojos, to bring in mod programming, to bring in test-driven development, to bring that into a team or an organization, I would go get a thought leader in one of those areas, software craftspersonship. I would go get one of those people to lead those, to lead that part of the effort, because that's not my core skill set. It's not my sweet spot.
I think,
think-
Joe is asking for something a little bit different, Ron, if I understand Joe, your question right. It's basically, hey, can we use dojos to increase our innovation, our creativity within the coaching team rather than the engineering team? Am I understanding that right?
Yes, Gopal, thank you.
I'd go to the dojo book. So I think that so this is a consultant's answer. It depends. Go to the dojo book, and looking through the dojo book, as you go through that, how would we apply this to us? So when you look at Scrum, say Scrum was written to be about software. But I'm guessing that all of us know somebody who uses it on an individual basis. And we know people who use it in their business. And we know people who use it for developing hardware. And each of those was somebody who said, I think that's really going to be really valuable. How do I adapt that to my situation? And in fact, it's the same thing when we bring Scrum into a software organization, is how do we adapt it to our software problem, to our software organization, to our culture, to our customers, to our executives.
And
Thank you.
I would argue, everyone, that we've been sort of doing that for years. We have off-site meetings, strategic sessions. I mean, executives do this, leaders do that, and they come up with strategy and so forth. We have workshops. We've had workshops for years to come up with design, innovation, and ideas and so forth, and then come back to the team. And I think that's one of the powers of Scaled Agile Framework. And you look at how you develop an art and how you do PI planning, because if you think about it, when we go off and do that with small teams, it's kind of like a dojo, and we're going off and figuring out, and it's a systematic process of how to do that, and we come out with an outcome, right? This is our strategy. This is the work we need to do. This is the prioritized business outcomes that we want, right? So I would argue that those kind of things we do is similar to a mob programming or a dojo type of kata type of environment, Ron and everyone. But it's more of, what are we going to build? What does the customers want? What's our strategy? What are we going to invest in? Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think we need to work on both what is our process and what are our skill sets. We have to work on both of those. And I will say, from a software development standpoint, most software development organizations don't work on either one of those. I was at Schwab and had a unique experience where we were developing in Java in 1997. So we were figuring out Java about as fast as Sun was developing it, and we may have been second to Sun in understanding Java. And we were supposed to develop a product for Schwab's customers. And as we figured, and our executives, I wasn't an executive yet, our executives figured out that maybe if we brought in an organizational development facilitators to facilitate team building in it's a corporate environment, facilitate team building across client development and server development and middleware and mainframe development. I mean, you got security and networking. You got all these different people in an enterprise who are going to work on something. maybe if we brought it, and we had half-day offsites where they were not walking tightropes in the forest. We had half-day offsites where we were talking about our stuff being facilitated by, and I came back and said, wow, the team building in this was, so whether we do it with organizational development consultants, or we do it because we bring in that dojo outfit out of Target, or we bring in Agile Scrum training. I find teams innovated by Scrum training that I deliver, and it's for that same reason. It's that team building. It's the team talking to each other and having those conversations with each other. Whatever the reason is, we get much higher performance teams when we do those kinds of things. And that's on the process side, not the skill side.
That's awesome. So I'm seeing one of the most highlighted sticky in this board, which talks about continuous conformance to standards and regulations. So
Yeah. I can take a couple of minutes on that. So one of the challenges we're seeing, I typically work with automotive and healthcare kind of products, embedded products, which is typically, like you go through some compliances, conformances, etc. So one of the challenges we are seeing in Agile adoption is, every team, they keep coming and saying, oh, I need to do so much to, in terms of documentation, in terms of conformance, to achieve this. And that's one of the big hurdles for agility, and I keep telling we can't bolt on some of this. I think I like the shift left on quality. You can't bring in quality towards the end, right? You need to build in quality, and likewise, we need to build in conformance. But this is one of the big challenges we are facing.
So what has been the experience of other folks in this space of continuous conformance and compliance as well, right? That's what you mean, right, Krishna?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the banking industry and the insurance industry, a lot of clients I've worked with and companies I've worked with, we've tackled this. So what we do is we bring compliance and audit into the teaming and the process, and we create features and stories that are aligned to compliance and audit, which includes documentation. And we came up with documentation standards. So, Jira or the common Agile tools there is not a document repository, right? It's not going to meet compliance and audit requirements. So we came up with a solution for that and how we brought that information in. Then we had conversations, compliance and audit, and we would go to the banking regulators or the insurance regulators, state regulators, and say, well, what do you really need? And you'd be surprised what they would tell us. A lot of companies have over-engineered their compliance and audit requirements based on what they thought. Then when you talk to the state and federal regulators, they go, yeah, we don't need all that. So we go back and lean it out, right? And only provide what's absolutely, there's need for the regulators and so forth, but there's also needs for the internal people inside the company and the run teams, right? So that they can have proper information and documentation. And we try to create the run team and development team to be the same team, but that's a struggle, I'll let y'all know. So that's what kind of we've done in the banking and insurance side. I don't know if that's the same on the farm side and the biotech side, because they're under strict regulations to come up with new meds and everything, and they have to follow FDA guidelines and so forth. So I don't know how Agile is being applied there.
Yeah, and to add to what Jay said, like in my experience is that if you are able to get representation from them also when the backlog is being refined, and also when there is bi-weekly review of the work implemented, I think that helps into not just into getting continuous conformance compliance, but also on the other parts like security and risk and other areas. So I think making all those areas of legal risk, compliance, conformance as part of your journey is basically would what help in making it
Yeah.
continue.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you.
And Prasad, I always say, look, this is a mystique or some weird thinking that Agile says, we don't do any documentation. So the Agile manifesto is we value both, but we value the stuff on the left a little bit more. We've never said, we're not going to do any documentation. That's stupid, right? And if you're in a
That's very true.
regulated company and organization, you have to do a lot of that. Okay, so I always breathe a little, I call it a breath of reality into the conversation that yeah, of course we got to do that, but let's figure out how we can do this iteratively and incrementally, and how we can keep that as a living document going forward, so that we meet the regulations, the compliance and audit and regulatory requirements, right? And if we can do that, then we're golden, right? And if we can lean it out and get rid of waste, oh, that's even better.
So if we don't build a force field shield around ourselves to prevent anything and everything from coming in, but we actually collaborate with the regulators. So I like what you were saying there, Jay.
Exactly. Never assume.
I have to go now. I have a hard constraint, but it was a pleasure talking to you guys. It was a great learning for me. I look forward to more such sessions.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being around, Krishna. Awesome. So I think we have completed our 3 different areas, and I think we are ready to harvest the whole conversation. So what I have done while we were having the conversation, I have consolidated each of the topics that the key things that came out, and we can use the next 15 minutes to have summing up and consolidating our thoughts around what we are harvesting or learning from this conversation, and see if there is anything that we want to add or update on this. So let's do 5 minutes each on each of the topics. So let me put a 5-minute timer. Yep. So I think there was a lot of interest that we generated in the first topic. So let's see what we got here. So we found different ideas that we said that budget on as a pattern that emerged, it works on annual basis, and basically how do we manage a product line and adapt safe and Spotify, or how are we realizing benefits of implementing, and there is also a power struggle, and start with traditional is what came out, and then still there is a disconnect between the decisions and we are still talking about agile, and there is no place for participatory budgets yet in what we are seeing at the moment. So and the interfaces, how do we manage it frictionless, and we have to, how do we I think this was around portfolio, and the last one is that how do we define business agility and be with a humble mind and support nimbleness towards innovation and managing 2 tracks, innovation and running the company. So any thoughts, last thoughts around this, if there's anything that we need to add or something that you want to talk about?
I would say we can add a sticky if you want that that there's no one solution to solve portfolio management and investments. I think it's very organizational and culture specific to be agile in that space. And it's a journey and an evolution. So I would even argue that some companies would never go to an agile lean portfolio management approach. It just
Or maybe they may take more time, right?
no, I would say some it just doesn't fit. It doesn't fit their business model. Okay, I would argue that. I don't know if I'm correct. Some people will completely disagree with me. But this whole notion of business agility and changing the organization and the business side of the organization, you know, because remember what Ron said, this started all from software group or the software engineering side of the house. It's moving more and more into what I call a pure business and changing business organization models, investing and management and finance, right? I think this is still relatively new. And I think there's a lot of growing up in this space. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I agree, Ron. I agree, Jay. The issue is also about the top line and bottom line. So unlike a software development, there is no direct, impact. There may be an implied impact. Here it's like, okay, hey, I have to write a check to somebody as well. So that is the bigger issue here as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gopal. So it's cost, operational costs and lowering the costs. Because look, at the end of the day, you have GAAP and accounting requirements. And if you're a public company, you have to provide certain information to the public and to the stock market and your investors, right? And they're going to look for the typical financial measurements for success. So if we can tie our agile ways of working and ways of thinking to improving the revenue or reducing the cost, that's generally it. We want employee happiness, we want customer delight and happiness, we want all that because that helps improve revenue and reduce costs. But until we can make those strong connections and those quantifiable metrics, why would they believe doing this would help them? You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that's true. Awesome. So I think we can jump to the next one, which is innovation. So who would like to cover what we have harvested so far? So I did the first one. I would like to see if someone can volunteer for the next one and talk to it. Who wants to do it?
I think we should volunteer the person from Singapore. See you. You're on mute if you're trying to say something.
Okay, thanks for we started with some form of like let me look into the sticky note again. I think we started with some activity like Hackathon and Hackathon to help us to move or better in innovation. And there's a question on what is innovation in this context. And we can see that some people refer to it more of evolutionary. Some people refer it more of new product lines. And to help us to keep the momentum, there's some suggestion like using retrospective, backlog refinement, to keep the SIA going. And one of the participants also talk about the role storming, and what I gather is helping us to be in certain role than the usual, and that is a way to help us to get away from the box. And there's also discussion of all this, does it work or does it helpful, and the debate still going on. I think it's very much depend on the company culture and where they are coming from. And what else do we discuss? Yes, one thing I also learned, highlight that experiment is the key. I think not only from the official stance, and it also help if we can open and honest with each other, especially between the product people and the delivery people. Yep, that's what I have gathered in this breakout.
Great. Thank you so much. We put you on the spot and you delivered. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I would add in here, another sticky, Piyush, is for innovation to be meaningful, you have to connect it to the portfolio management. Okay, there has to be an outcome, a metric, a meaningful, are we improving revenue, reducing operational costs? So anything we innovate on, it has to be within the borders of what we do as a company, right? Okay. And there has to be some result, like we've talked about, Sue and everybody. We're just not innovating to innovate. Okay, what's the result? What are we getting out of it, right? And like Ron said, he's seen a lot of great results, right? But I think for innovation to be meaningful, it has to be tied to the portfolio management. It has to be tied to quantifiable and qualitative metrics, quants. And then I think, then companies are more readily willing to invest in this and give people the time. I don't know. What does everyone think about that?
Absolutely, Jay. I think tying it with what is our strategic goals and how it is aligning with the organizational OKRs, and continuously quarterly establishing what are the aligning OKRs for what product we are implementing, or what is the customer journey that is being implemented. I think it's very, very critical that we are able to measure that, and more so from the leading indicators perspective, as quickly as fast we can validate the assumptions and come out with what is it that is really that we want to pursue or pivot, right? So I think that's very, very important. And unless we have set out those outcomes up front, it may lead us into all different directions, and we would end up not knowing what we are trying to do.
I fully agree with what Jay said, and fully agree with what Piyush you added. But I have one question, and that question is, often it is difficult to do that proper alignment, proper planning, proper setting the links between the practice. Unfortunately, usually executives, they run out of patience. They want to get something very quickly, like truly very quickly. And you don't have that privilege of developing a proper outcomes, metrics for the outcomes, objectives, goals, a good roadmap, maybe some important milestones, and then map your work against those milestones. That's also unfortunate situation, because there's always push, like get things done quickly.
Yeah,
you have to.
Yeah, absolutely, Joseph. What you say is absolutely right, and you just brought me an experience that I recently was facing. So what I did was, instead of showing what we did at the end of what we did, I started involving them into what is it that we did. Let's say, for example, we did a Gemba, right? What was it that we did? What was our interviews? What we learned from those interviews? We started doing that. And once we started showing from the opportunities perspective that this is what we are seeing, and this is what we are arriving at our assumptions, and what we know, what we don't know, and what is the most riskiest assumption, they started understanding that it is not as simple as, okay, what have you achieved? What is important is that what are we doing to get us to that, right? And keeping them in the loop, that gives them more confidence, because now they know that, okay, this is how we are doing. And that helped me a lot to get them to trust this whole process. So
Yeah, that's good, because we got to get them involved early and throughout the process. And I would also suggest, and I hate to say this because Ron will probably jump all over me, certain practices and frameworks are better for innovation than others. So like design thinking, service design, certain lab type of exercises do experimentation. What Google does is a 1 week sprint and doing, Wizard of Oz apps and so forth, versus a full Scrum type of practice. Now, I'm not saying you don't innovate while you're doing scrumming and coding. Of course you do, right? I'm talking about pure disruptive innovation, coming up with a brand new product or service you're going to bring to the market and creating new customers.
That's why we do hackathons. They're out of the normal line of things.
Right. But then I'm saying on top of that, Ron, we have to understand how to create new markets and new customers for new products. So take the software out of the mindset. We're going to build code, don't get me wrong, but what product or service should we bring to? So an insurance market and annuities, what annuities should we bring to the market, right? So that's the design thinking I was talking about.
Well, developers aren't the only ones who should have hackathons.
That's right. Oh, that's a good point. Yes, I didn't think about that. So we should that's a good point. How could we apply that into the pure business world? That's a good point.
awesome. Yeah, I think we did a great conversation in the innovation. So I think the last one is technical agility, and we have 4 minutes. So who wants to talk about what we harvested in this week?
Well, I'll go for 4 minutes. Dojos, katas, mob programming, test-driven development, there are craft skill sets out there. They're not always easy to adopt, bringing in experts and expertise to help us adopt those kinds of things in development, as well as outside of development, and probably in the product and in the business world. And we need to recognize that we're likely to see a drop in productivity in the short term in order to gain a greater productivity in the long term. And one of the ways of dealing with that is in bringing in not just expertise, but people with expertise who can help us to build what we've been building, so that we at least do the level of delivery that we were doing before while we're learning. And then as we draw back, as we send the consultants home, then we have that higher level of productivity as they leave.
Awesome. Any other thoughts, anyone, to add to what Ron just mentioned? Wonderful. All right. So I think we had a really engaging conversation. I don't know how this 2 hours went by. It went like a jiffy, I can tell you. I hope it was valuable for everyone who participated in this. I really learned a lot today out of this session. And anybody would like to share their last thoughts who came today?
Maybe I share a bit of my observation. So one of the outcome coming from this session is I felt inspired by your experience. And I realized that, I think one of you said that there's no silver bullet. A little help here and there possibly help us to move to a more aligned direction. That's my takeaway. Thank you for all your help.
Awesome. Awesome. Anyone else would like to share anything?
No, I think there are a lot of common issues. It's not just us. You know, we are not dealing with unique issues. It's common across the board.
And I love being in discussions like this because all of you remind me of to connect the neurons in my brain to actually see things that you've seen before me.
Awesome.
And Piyush, thank you. Great session putting it together.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks for making this happen collectively. So it was fun.
It's a great opportunity to hear from great minds, and the workshop was really enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Yep. Thanks everyone. And Jay, the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, so those are new. We put the recordings, if I can get my rear end to do it quickly. We put our recordings out on YouTube, and I'll send them out. So we have a YouTube space for our meetup, and we have lots of recordings out there. So I don't know, we've been recording stuff for a while, almost 2 years now, right? A year since the pandemic. And we've had some great speakers and celebrities, I'm putting air quotes, in Agile come and talk to us. And so they're out there. So those videos, because also soon I'll send out an email. So watch for your meetup email, because I send it through Meetup. Okay, so you'll get whatever you put in your meetup as your connector to email. And I'll send that out, and you can go out there and look. And there's, like I said, there's some great sessions out there. So thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully this was valuable for you. And come back, because we're going to have some great guests coming in, like Gopal said, to talk about some really interesting stuff so we can learn. So come on back, and thank you again for joining.
Yep. Good night. Good morning, wherever we are.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
thank you a lot.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.